and wetlands. The extent of productivity is very evident, and this landscape supports a healthy and vibrant community and a strong local economy. It's the largest cane growing region in Australia, based initially on the fertile delta soils and the Burdekin River irrigation area. It's blessed with more than 300 days of sunshine per year, much of which we'd be getting in the last couple of years without any rain, but provides ideal conditions for growing sugarcane. Prevalent water from underground aquifers and the Burdekin Dam have stimulated a thriving sugar industry. But this abundance of water has in the past sometimes allowed wasteful practices that have less than ideal consequences on our coastal wetlands and inshore and environments. Irrigation water has continually flooded wetlands that should be left dry during the wet season. Runoff from farms carried with it valuable nutrients. Lighter soils of the delta leached water and nutrients beyond the root zone and into the groundwater aquifers. Its productive potential lost forever to the crop and to the farmer. As cane production increases worldwide and input costs rise, cane farmers are now realising more than ever that they can ill afford to lose those valuable resources from their farms. A wave of improved practices is sweeping the industry, such as irrigation scheduling tools to time application, sensors to notify when irrigation is complete, excuse me, automation of systems, precision application of fertilisers and pesticides. And you'll be talking about a lot of those things and the updates that you've had in the last couple of years during the next couple of days. These modern farming practices are now approaching contemporary status, but they were all once innovations. Innovations driven by farmers, supported by researchers and quality extension. Innovation is in fact why Project Catalyst exists. Our focus more than ever is to continue to improve our farming systems to make them more profitable, less wasteful and less harming to our precious local environment. Project Catalyst has the support of multinationals and the global environmental movement in the form particularly of the Coca-Cola Foundation and WWF. Why is that? Because those cutting-edge organisations recognise that the progress we seek will not come to fruition by working in isolation. It will emerge from collaborative partnerships like this one. This gathering, our annual forum, is a celebration of that ongoing collaboration. It's an opportunity to share, to develop and promote mutually beneficial goals. Goals to maintain our competitive edge, to have long-lasting businesses and to protect our unique natural assets. Can I wish you all well over the next couple of days? If you take away one idea, then this two-day conference has been a success for you. So, as I said, enjoy our city, enjoy the conference, and I hope that you make many new friends and find just a little bit out about what your neighbour's doing. So, welcome to Townsville once again. Have a good time.
Thank you, Les. Okay, so by now you will have claimed your registration packs this morning at your table. So Coca-Cola have been very generous this year and provided what every Queenslander needs in the great outdoors, a multifunctional cold pack. So inside you'll find various goodies from our sponsors, including Stubby Cooler, even some Barocca, reusable beverage cup, a stress ball or frog, hopefully you won't need that today, pen, notepads, caps and brochures. Now the most important items for Forum are the magazine with the program. Program's on page 3 instead of having a pin-up like we have previously, and the feedback form plus 2 other important flyers. Okay, the feedback form. So this year, due to the success of last year's incentive prize, which was a barbecue pack, we've done it again. You could be the lucky owner of an Esky Bayer barbecue toolkit. Serena Sugar Shed sauces, chutneys and liqueurs. Wish gift card, stubby coolers. Project Catalyst barbecue apron and cap. And Catchment Solutions thermometer. So make sure that you fill in the feedback form and please return it to go into the draw. You'll need a raffle ticket and you'll be able to get that from Kim, but I'll give you a reminder about that feedback form a little later on as well. On top of that, for the growers in the room, you've been given a survey, which is anonymous. Your responses will shape the future for your Project Catalyst program. To encourage your participation, we have one of a kind brazier, emblazoned with the logo and an artistic design of a turtle up for grabs. So incentive there to get that survey in. And I know it's hard to imagine winter right now, but try to picture yourself with your esky sitting around the fire as it casts an artistic glow. With our lanyards, now in the interest of sustainability and also productivity, two things that we're all familiar with, we ask that you please return your lanyards with name tags to be recycled and reused in the coming years. To maximise the potential, we'll give 2 people engraved copper stainless mugs filled with an assortment of your favourite spirit. If that is not incentive enough, I don't know what is. But I will also remind you of that. I'll be the lanyard Nazi. Okay, so we're going to move on now to our first speaker. So when I was doing my research on just exactly what drones do in agriculture and learning so much about just checking stock, water, fencing, and it really blew my mind how modern technology can really help us. So I'd like to welcome Brian Granshaw up to the stage, talking about drones in agriculture and embracing technology and deciphering data. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you. This is a bit of deja vu. I see a lot of faces that I haven't seen for a while, and appreciate being asked to come up and speak about technology. We're going to talk a little bit about drones, but I think what I'd like to do first is just tell you who I am, where I come from, and I started my farming career in 1971. I was about 2.5 then. So like most of the farmers out here, that's where it started for me. My ambition when I was a young fellow was to help me dad. So some technology here. Which ones move? Top arrow? No. Is it on? Yep, we got it. There we go. So I just wanted to talk about the way that we thought about technology when we were farming. I think it comes down to a lot about how you think about things. These were 3 things we were taught as a kid. We were never able to say we couldn't do anything. There was always someone that could help us if we just kept asking. And I think those things have really made a difference to the way we approached what we were doing. We farmed in Dalbeg, which was 100 kilometres from the nearest town. We had bugger all internet and the phone service wasn't much better. So we embraced technology, we sought people out, and I think the way that we thought about it was it's one step at a time. We didn't have to know everything all at once. At the particular time we started was in 2005. We had one GPS system. We were static. We could get it to drive straight. After we worked it out a little bit, we said, man, this thing can do other things for us. So then we started to learn as we learned, and we improved on what we did. Technology and farming. Where do you start? How much technology is there at the moment? There's drones, there's satellite imagery, there's yield data, water quality data, everything. There's data everywhere. What do you do? So what we did is we looked around in 2004 to see who we were going to work with. And what we decided was we needed to work with people that had a track record of being able to bring innovation and make it work. At that time, it was with BMS LaserSat. They've got a 35-year history of bringing innovation into agriculture. They first started with laser and laser scrapers for water management. In 2006, Michael Munro over here was the first person to put auto steer on a wheeled cane harvester. That was at our place in Dalbeg. So I think it's important when you start to think about technology and what you're going to do with it, is you start to think about who you're going to deal with, what their track record is, are they going to be there when things go wrong, and to me that's one of the big things you need to think about. So a little bit about where I am now. 3 years ago, farming got a bit too hard for us, and we made a decision not to farm anymore. So at that time, BMS LaserSat approached me to take on the role that I've got now. So BMS LaserSat has just had a name change, so it's still the same company. So that's why you see Vantage running around now. So Trimble in the US have said all Trimble ag resellers now will be Vantage. So we're still the same people, we're still the same company. If anything, we've got a few more bows that we can actually access now. So there's a bit more of a focus on services. So not just hardware, software. We've got some, we can basically look at from soil to satellites, so, and everything in between, and have the personnel to help with that. So yeah, that's where we started. We started with someone that we knew had a track record, somebody that we could rely on, we could pick up the phone, and I think that's a key point. I think if you haven't got someone that you can call when things go wrong, it becomes really difficult. So what do I know about farming and technology? I just wanted to put some of these achievements up here to show, even though we were out in the middle of nowhere, if you do apply technology and you do look at how you can improve, there are benefits to it. So our farming system was a controlled traffic, permanent bed, minimum till, legume fallow, and we were able to achieve some really good results with that. So one of the things that in 2014 we were accredited as above industry practice for best management practices. So that's what technology can do if you use it in a way that is appropriate, I suppose. As I said before, you don't have to know everything at once. It's just, okay, now we're at this stage, okay, we've got this covered, what's the next stage, what's the next stage, and you can move on from there. So I was also fortunate enough to do a Nuffield Scholarship in 2012. So a little bit about that. I think if you've got any influence over the sugar industry and their funding bodies, I would encourage you to use that influence to try and promote Nuffield Scholarships. There was 3 of us that did it, and the 3 of, I think Joe Muscat's in the room, was another one, and the knowledge that you bring back to the industry, the things that you see where you fit in the world are quite invaluable, and that really helps me understand where we fit, the technology that we use. Basically everywhere we went, Australians were recognised as very efficient, very environmentally aware, and very at the forefront of technology. So technology. I think that's the 1st of September 1968. That's Henry Granshaw, that's my grandfather. So in 1968, that was cutting edge technology, 120 horsepower international tractor. And everyone said he was mad. You don't need a tractor that big, you know. My grandfather started with horses like a lot of people here and you know, primitive tractors. So I think even though probably technology moves faster now and it's always been there. In this place, it was a tractor. Now we're talking about drones or satellite imagery. So it's always been there. I think it's just the way you look at it. So how to make sense of it? I think the trick is you don't have to make sense of it all at once. I think what you need to do is understand where you're at, understand what you need, and then find people that can help you deliver on that technology. So, yeah, as I said, we've got drone data, satellite data, soil data, yield data, farm recording software, equipment coverage logs, fertiliser rates, variable rate applications, and the list goes on. But you don't need to know it all at once. And I think that's what, if you look at it in a step-by-step process and say, okay, well, where am I at? What's the most relevant technology for me at the moment? And you can move from there. And that's why it's important to have a good relationship with the people that you work with and the technology providers so that you can actually get that assistance. As I said, in 2005, we had a GPS and we were stoked we could drive it. You know, we could push the button and it'd drive straight. Very soon after that, we said, well, what else can we do with this thing? So we were on the phone to Michael, say, hey, we want to do this, we want to do that. So it's a learning process. So no one needs to know it all at once. So drones. We've got a drone sitting out there at the moment. That's a UX5. It's a autonomous aerial vehicle. We can program it to fly at a certain height, cover a certain distance. It can take very high resolution survey data. It can take near infrared technology, imagery. It can look at crop vigour, lots of different things. The way I think about drones is it's a snapshot in time. So it tells you what's happening here at the moment. So it's really important to understand where that fits. You know, that tells you that there's an issue. It doesn't tell you what the issue is. It doesn't tell you what's driving the issue. So I think everything has to be put in context. And as a layer of information, it is valuable because it can help you know or start where to look. Satellite technology. That's becoming more and more available at the moment. Through Vantage, we have access to satellite technology. We have in-season crop productivity index stuff that we've now got. But once again, that's something that you have to understand the context of it. You have to understand what the growing season was. You have to understand, you know, was it a wet year? Was it a poor year? Did the cane flower? So you have to understand the context behind it. So again, this is another tool to help bring some context and point you in the direction of saying, okay, well, there might be an issue here, or there's a 20% yield decrease over here. Maybe we need to go and find out why. So here we have some satellite imagery, some soil imagery from SIS, and some yield data. So the way that we think about this information is we need to have multiple layers of information. So the more layers of information you have, the better decisions you can make, because you're getting rid of some of the variables. You actually understand some of the context, you understand what the yield was, you understand what some of the soil properties were that were driving that yield, and that lines up with what the satellite's showing you. So, as I said, the more layers of information that you can collect, we can also put drone imagery over this. So the other advantage of a drone is that you can actually use it when you want to use it, and it's not interfered with cloud. So when you look at satellite imagery, you've got to understand when that was taken and if there's anything that was affecting that reflectance. So one thing I've coined the phrase is technology provides information and people make decisions. I think we sometimes think that if we've got this new shiny bit of technology, it's just going to be magic and it's all going to work and that's it. That's not how I see it. The technology is there to provide the information. You still need people on the ground. You still need people with experience that understand the field conditions, they understand the soil conditions. And actually, at Vantage, in my role, my biggest asset is collaboration with other people. With my work, I travel all around Australia. I've done work in all states of Australia. And we collaborate with whoever those local people are, whoever the local agronomists are, because they know that place better than I ever will. So a lot of this technology, as it's coming on board more and more, I think collaboration is really the key. Not one person or one organisation is going to have all the knowledge. And I think that if you work with people who can collaborate and have networks to access different perspectives, you'll get a better outcome. So, soil technology, this is what I do. I think this is going by itself. Anyway. So what we're able to do now is, in the past, we were able to have a fairly broad look at soil and say, okay, well, there's some issues here and here. We've done an EC map and, you know, things look different there and there. With this technology, we can actually drill down deeper now. We can actually isolate soil physical characteristics and soil chemical characteristics at a 10 by 10 metre resolution. And that all sounds great, but is it going to make money for us? So, you know, it's one of them things. We've got this technology. How are we going to use it? How are we going to put money in people's pocket? So in this case, this was a 54 hectare field, paddock. And what we did there is we looked at where all the soil cores were taken. We used the Gypsy program. We were able to access those elements that we needed. And so based on this information that we now gathered, because we've got a finer resolution, we could narrow it down so we could then spatially allocate different zones within that paddock to be treated differently based on the numbers that we'd just had before. So we now know what the ESP is, we now know what the cation exchange capacity is, we know what those things are in those zones, and we can treat them accordingly. And here's Gypsy, you put the numbers in, it'll give you a analysis. And then we sit down with the people, the local people in the area, and say, does this make sense? Does this look right to you? And most of the time, we're pretty close, it's on the money. So what we can then do is, before we even lift a finger and go and do anything, we can actually work out what that's going to cost to treat. And if the cost isn't, if it's not an economic thing to do, we might say, okay, that's great, but it's not going to fix the problem. So it also then gives us the option to say, isolate those areas, those pink areas, for example, and say, well, we'll cut back on inputs because we know there's a problem here. We know that we're not going to be able to fix it. Nitrogen's not going to, we're not going to have the potential to grow this crop on that area because of these constraints. So does it make money? Oh, sorry. So this is what it looks like in the applicator. So the work that I do with SIS is brand agnostic. It'll anything that deals with shape files it can be imported to. So then once again, now that's a collaboration. Trimble have realised that we have to be able to be flexible and work with other systems. So this information's usable on other systems. So that's what it looks like loaded in the machine. I was talking to a couple of guys last night and we're talking about VRA and everyone said it's just too hard. You know, we know it's there, we know this, we know that, but it takes us a day and when we get out there it's just too hard. It doesn't have to be that hard, and I think it's a matter of working with people, working through these issues, coming up with a management plan. The technology exists now. That is actually an application that was spread. So that went from soil data to a desktop version. From a desktop version, it was exported into the spreader, and it was out in the paddock. So I know it's not always the simplest of things, but the way the technology is moving, it's becoming simpler and more user-friendly. So does it pay? So in this case, that was normal practice. SIS derived variable rate. There's the figures. After our costs, $26,745 in front. So that's the bottom line. And so when I said about you think about, that's just one example of one technology, but if you sit down and think about it in a logical way and work out where you can use it, what's going to be the biggest bang for your buck, it can make sense. And the outcome is we want to try and improve consistency. We want to improve the potential impacts of off-site impacts. So that's what we're aiming for. So as technology's moved, we're able to narrow down and go, instead of managing paddocks within a farm, we can now start to manage zones within a paddock and understand with confidence why we're doing that. And you notice I haven't spoken about nitrogen because we've done over 2,000 hectares now, and most of the big impediments or the big issues have been soil physical constraints. Things like compaction, water issues, soil sodicity or dispersive soils at depth. So they're the sort of things that we have been finding that are driving productivity. And once again, collaboration is the way forward. When Terry and I farmed up in Dalberg, we didn't do it by ourselves. That's why I know so many of you guys in the room. We'd get in the car and drive to New South Wales. Enough knowledge by ourselves, but collaboratively, you get one good idea from one or two people along the way, you can make things work. And I don't see technology being any different. I think if you think about it that way, there's plenty of people in the room with plenty of knowledge to find or to help you get to where you want to be. And I think this is the last slide. So this is the glory days. Back in Dalberg, my dad, my brother, and myself. So yeah, that's the way we thought about it. I think that's the way I still think about it now in this position that I have. Working with Vantage all over Australia, working with local agronomists, working with people that are in the areas that know the land, know the soils, know the crops. We can provide information, and together we can sit down and come up with a better outcome. And so it doesn't have to be that hard. And the good thing about it is there's more and more people with experience like me. And I was a farmer, so every time I look at one of these reports, I sit there and I go, man, what would I do if this was my farm? Because I know at the end of the day, it's great to have, you know, a nice map or something, but it's got to put money in people's pocket, and it's got to have a practical outcome, a financially positive outcome, and an environmentally beneficial outcome. So I think all these things are possible using technology in this way. So that's me. How'd I go for time? All right. So that good? A bit late?
You did good. You'll get a prize. You helped me out. We're only 5 minutes behind after our late start. So, thank you so much, Brian. And next we have a year in review, so a panel discussion. So that will be facilitated by Craig Davenport, who I'm sure we are all familiar with. Project Catalyst Coordinator from Catchment Solutions. So please welcome Craig to facilitate the panel discussion.
Don't worry, I'm not the whole panel. There's one. There's two. They all volunteered last night or early this morning. Apparently I was blocking out too much of the view. So I dragged these guys, they volunteered, up onto the stage just to look at the last 12 months. I guess since we met in Mackay, a lot of things have happened. Some were a big surprise, some were quite rewarding, some were quite challenging. So I just wanted to bring up a couple of growers and talk about what they actually did during the year or what happened to them during the year, just to put in perspective that, you know, we're here talking about innovation, but sometimes the shit hits the fan and, you know, you have to adapt and you have to overcome and you have to just be flexible. And, you know, then we get things back on track and we're back here again. So I guess Phil's got the microphone, so we'll throw him under the bus first of all. It sort of rained down your way not long after Forum. So do you want to talk about that and the Next Gen conference?
That we didn't have.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. From the conference, we'll probably look at one of the best crops in the Mackay, well, probably the whole central district from Proserpine to Serena was looking at one of the best crops we'd seen in ages. And then, yeah, after the Catalyst Forum, about 3 weeks later, we had Cyclone Debbie, which was probably nearly, at home, it was nearly a two-day cyclone. It was the first cyclone I've seen during the day. Normally they come during the night, and the next morning you wake up and it's gone, but it hung around for nearly 2 days. Then we ended up with one of the biggest floods. The biggest flood Dad's seen. He's been there on the farm for 35 years. We were lucky. We didn't sustain too much damage. It was mainly just paddock erosion, roads, a few trees down. Fair few people in the room were flooded around the area. And then after that, it really didn't rain again until probably the last 4 weeks of the crushing. We ended up with a wet end to the crushing, and now, yeah, it hasn't rained again. So, I don't know what's going on. But yeah, like Craig said, it's been a very interesting year to go from one extreme to the other, it seems. But look, it's no different. I think everyone here, every area's sustained what we've sustained this year at different stages. Just was our turn, I suppose. So, but it's good. I talked to some people up north about cutting flood-affected cane, what they did. Standover as well. We had standover last year. How to deal with that. So yeah, look, we're not dealing with anything. We didn't deal with anything new. Everyone's had their fair share of it.
Well, looking at that, I guess we'll pass straight over to Tony, and you know, our TV star was on our ABC Landline, and you know, a few other starring roles during the year. But do you want to give us a bit of a how you feel now about the last 12 months? Like, I know we met you with the Landline crew not long after the cyclone and while you were still recovering there, but where are you now? What's this year look like?
Well, this year, very wet into the crushing, like most areas around home. Same story, but forgot to rain since the crushing finished. But as far as our recovery efforts, I think most people in the stream's probably been through the same story when you talk about those larger events, Yassies, Larrys, Debbies. Personally, insurance hasn't been finished. Sheds still with iron not put back. Roller doors not done. The painting, the gutters. More than half of our insurance work hasn't been completed yet. We've lost a shed with one of our other companies. That's been replaced. I've been fixed up, but yeah, so it's those ongoing issues with getting those sort of things sorted out. Yeah, so we're moving along. I think the landline thing was a positive thing. It pointed a view, showed everyone the issues we're having and the struggles, but we tried to actually still be positive where we were going and how it was going to end. It was really good. We had Coca-Cola actually came up, a lot of the representatives, to come and see us after the cyclone, and they got a lot of the catalyst growers in the Central District together. We went to Faust Farming for a lovely dinner, made us forget about it. That was soon after the event. So that was, yeah, a good break from what you go through after you have those events. But yeah, the Proserpine area, bit negative, but I mean the town is still affected drastically. A lot of buildings aren't replaced. Prossies are still in a lot of trouble. When you get a crop, I think we cut 2 million plus the year before, whereas last year we were down to 1.4. So that's a lot of tonnes to lose from a small community, and that affects everyone from, yeah, the shop on the corner to everyone else. But we're looking forward. We've got a fair crop if it does rain, I suppose, hopefully. Yeah, but we just got to look forward and move forward. That's what we do. Righto.
Well, what did the other areas do while, you know, you were up to your shoulders in water? Ray, what were you up to? You were up there nice and dry, were you?
Yeah, my heart was going out to them because we had 2 cyclones in 5 years, so I knew exactly what they were going through. Yeah, there was some hard days after cyclones, as you know, but yeah, we just soldier on, don't you? You just keep going, and yeah, it'll all come good eventually. Yeah.
I guess as the party spokesman of the group, what can you actually tell the group about the visit to Coca-Cola that a few growers went on? Is there anything you can actually tell them about that visit?
Yeah, a group of 7 of us, Craig, was it?
Yes.
Went to Sydney for a visit with Coca-Cola, which was, yeah, Susie and the girls really looked after us down there, pampered us. And we went to the Coca-Cola factory, we went to the Coca-Cola head office, and we went to the football, of course, and watched the Queensland flog the Blues again.
In the last 2 minutes of the game. We were a bit worried about how we might get home on the train, but I'll tell you what, it was the noisiest trip going out because we were all dressed up in the maroon gear, and going back, the train was silent. They're all just looking at us. Jerry made a new friend, but he can ask Jerry about his new friend later that he made on the train. That was quite good.
Speaking of Jerry, I went to his 60th birthday last year too.
20 years ago?
No, just last year.
Oh, just last week.
So everyone wish Jerry a happy birthday.
Oh, yes. He doesn't look a day over 80. So, talking about the visit to Sydney and innovation and that sort of thing, the factory we went to was pretty amazing.
Yeah, especially the distribution centre. It was, I think, 3 acres.
Yeah.
And all shelving, and the shelving was the structure of the building, and all automated.
55,000 pallets.
Yeah.
in this
and
storage area.
nothing in order, all randomly put there. So if there was any glitches, they could source stock from the other side of the warehouse, and it was all done by computers, weighed on the dock, and loaded correctly for the trucks so that it'd be the right weight. And yeah, that was really impressive. That bit.
All the growers were hanging over the edge of the railing, going, "I want one of these at home." So. Paul was also there. He was the quietest one, if you believe that. So, what about the normal year? Well, relatively normal year for you in innovation. How have your projects gone, and what sort of interaction do you have with other growers during the year?
As you can see, I am the quietest of the group, so it's a bit hard to get started, but you might have to help me get started, maybe.
Oh, well, I guess we're always dropping in with media. Kim Clyden, who's around somewhere, is always randomly dropping into people's places to get stories and contacting them and that sort of thing. What is it as a grower that makes that fun for you? Like, you obviously must. Phil's smiling, so he obviously enjoys it when Kim and the drones, and it's probably the kids enjoy it more whenever Kim. Have I been on TV? Have I been on TV? So why is it that you're prepared to sit up here on the stage, apart from the fact I told you you had to? But what is it that gets you telling your story? Why do you do it?
Oh, well, as most of you know, I am pretty new to the cane industry. I've only been growing cane since 2005, so that's a relatively short time compared to most of you guys in the room. And I guess it's been, when I started, it was going to grower functions and field trips, and to learn how to grow and how to do it properly. I guess it's coming on board with doing all my own trials and working out, doing things different, and yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. So, where do you see the next year? I guess, given the turmoil of the last 12 months for some people.
Well, we were in the Burdekin. We were extremely lucky. We thought Cyclone Debbie was coming straight for us, and we were all, getting prepared, tying stuff down, and all the go through before a cyclone. But yeah, we missed it completely, and we ended up missing the rain. We got virtually no rain out of it, and afterwards it got very dry. So we were irrigating pretty consistently.
Phil could have sold you some cheap water by the sound of it.
And basically we got through, we got all our beans harvested, we got planted, we got our cane in the ground, we got all our cane, we got them all planted in May, and then down come the rain, which was pretty unseasonal just before the crushing. We had 200 mils or more, which affected some of the plant cane crops. And we got crushing, and then it got dry, and it looked like we were going to get right through the crushing without any rain, and then we got more rain towards the end of the crushing, which slowed it down and brought it, went a bit longer than we thought it was going to. I guess, going back to the innovation thing, I guess the thing we're working on at the moment is looking and putting in some automated flood, trying that to see if we can improve how we flood irrigate, because the Burdekin, that's the main irrigation, main way everyone irrigates.
Yeah, I've heard it's quite successful around Eaton, flood irrigation. Although I asked Phil at one stage, did you have a lot of, people's sheds and that sort of thing in your cane? And I remember his answer, and I thought, oh, that's a bit odd. he just said, no, the water was that high, it just washed straight over our farm and ended up in somebody else's. I'm like, that's a lot of water. When everybody was thinking the wind would be the destructive bit, is there anything you're still looking for that sort of washed away and you haven't found yet, or?
No, like I said, no, we didn't lose anything. We were lucky. Like I said, other people's houses were in cane fields, and the stuff that some people found harvesting, gas bottles, fridges, wheelie bins was a pretty common occurrence. But like I said, the water was that high, or come up that quick and was that fast. Yeah, there was even the tree. We didn't have many trees or logs or timber in the fields this time. It's been a lot worse. The only thing we found was Vestiga's, Dean and John's diesel tank was probably the biggest thing we found.
Yeah, whereas they're not far from you, and they suffered a lot more damage.
Yeah.
So it's really unpredictable, I guess, is part of the message.
Well, the flood was done, it done the most damage through the Mackay area anyway. We had no power, no phones, no nothing. We was hearing Mackay saying, "Oh, the worst is over," and meanwhile, there's probably 100, 150 houses flooded out our way. Well, I don't know how, but it's probably more than that. But no one sort of knew what was going on from Mackay out. Because there's no communication. That was probably the biggest thing out of the whole cyclone. Our communication is going backwards as a country. It's ridiculous. Because once the power goes out, we got nothing. We got an NBN tower that's on a floodplain, so that was out for 3 weeks. Yeah, so we had no power, no internet, no phones. Yeah, it was.
But I bet the bill from the taxman had still arrived. Like the post would still get through with a bill. Like no positive news had arrived, but you'd still get a bill.
Oh no, the bills still come. That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
The post always gets through, eh?
Jumping across to Tony again. As we're coming out to organise these landline visits, and the usual, hi, I'm coming tomorrow. Can I bring some VIPs with me? We're sitting down and having a cup of coffee, and Tony started talking about his excavator that stopped working the day before.
Yeah, I don't really need reminding about our year. We've had a shocking year this year. That's only one thing. Yeah, my main Komatsu 220, yeah, she did a hydraulic line onto the turbo, burned to the ground the poor operator didn't even get his smoker box out of it. He didn't know, he just jumped out and bang, she was gone. It was amazing, how it atomised the oil and just burned to the ground. But, we've had a lot more fun this year than just that. It's,
But that was the day before I rock up all happy going, we're bringing a film crew, we're going to take some film. It's the willingness of all the growers to accept us, capturing the stories, bringing the VIPs in, that I think is truly amazing. No matter how bad you're having a time, there were still mountains of morning tea. We could have kept eating morning tea till about dinner time. But, it's that welcoming approach and it's that openness to still share the story that blows me away. And, when I heard about your excavator, I'm like, I'm not coming here anymore. I'm like the bringer of doom. So, so the recovery can take, how long do you think it'll be before you don't see any signs of Debbie?
Oh, it'll be a while. There's always those massive big fig trees that used to be over the creek. You used to drive to the creek in the lovely shaded area. It's all open now, those sort of things. They'll always be just memories to me. The damage to the farm being compaction and stuff, and that was mainly for the wet end of the crushing and all those sort of things. No, those stuff's there for a long time. Yeah, it was the little annoying things. It was every time you started an irrigation motor, no matter how big or how small, and you got so many of the bloody things. Most of the times, because of the sustained wind speed for 20, 30 hours, whatever it was, those motors, you have to get them rewound. They're all buggered. I mean, it's just every time you touch something this year, there was something wrong. Just by the forced moisture into everything. So, no, she was a challenge. We won. We got through.
Good. And some of the stories I guess, you know, I'd like to thank, is Kim Clyden in the room? Yeah. I couldn't hear you, Kim. So, she's going to give me a 1 minute signal in a minute. Kim raced out once the storm had happened and captured some footage, and that spiralled into what became the landline story and a whole heap of other stories that connected it. So, you know, part of the year in review is a thank you to Kim for thinking about that, you know, you can't go and capture it 6 weeks later when you organise the landline story. You have to capture it almost while the event's going on. And I think she dragged poor Jack out as well, and, you know, they captured a lot of footage that really triggered people's thinking about what happened and allowed us to get the publicity that we got for the story. So, yeah, I know she rings you up and she arrives at your place and asks you lots of questions, but truly, thank you, Kim. I think that was a significant thing that you did.
Don't forget about Gary and Louis. There he is. I know Louis here because I know Gary was a bit nervous prior to doing that story, but he did very well wherever he is.
Is he here? No, just the media tart, Lou. But we'll hear more from him later. Oh, there he is. He's looking at me. I'll pay for that one. Another thing I'd like to do is thank everybody that's contributed to the stories that have gone into your magazine. If you open this up, one of the things we've tried to do with running, I guess, the forum and Project Catalyst itself from the Catchment Solutions, we've got to try and be innovative as well. If you think back a couple of years to the booklet, I think we've evolved that as well. I think we're telling the stories better. We're capturing more things that you'd like to read. You know, I'm hoping that this becomes something that you look forward to seeing each year. The stories that are in the magazine. We're really trying to help you with that information and link that through to the website as well. Website's been a bit slower and we'll talk about that later on. But we're trying to transfer more information. You know, as the group gets bigger, you know, we're almost 200 people in the room here. You know, we've been growing the project and it's obvious that, you know, there's still lots of new stories and people want to listen to those stories. So, you know, it's not just the stories of these 4 guys up here at the moment. There's, you know, 100 other stories in here that are worth capturing, and watching everybody network last night was really quite good. Thank you for the Panadol, Tracy. Very helpful this morning. I'll have a couple of drinks later of water. But, you know, it's getting everybody here and it's seeing the way that people, you know, cross out of their normal regional areas and communicate with each other that is really quite nice. So where are we going to keep sharing the message of the next couple of days? Kim's given me the hashtags. So if you're into all that hashtag stuff, maybe I need somebody about half my age to explain all this, but if you're tagging photos that you're taking, the hashtags are PC 10 years, so that's TEN and years, all as one word. PC 2018, so PC and then 2018, and then PC Townsville 18. So if you hashtag, it'll get followed, or I don't know what they do. I take a photo, put it up, my friends go, great photo, you know. I figured out how to put a photo up at least, so I need far more lessons on that. So I guess in closing, is there anything that you guys have missed in the year or want to highlight that you enjoyed in the year? Was there something positive to take from the year, you know? What are we looking forward to this year that didn't happen last year? You can start, Tony.
no bloody cyclone, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a normal crush would be nice. No big wet periods, no nothing else. Yeah, just a normal year, a normal average.
Have you got
season.
the lotto numbers for
No.
next Saturday as well? No?
No, no. Normality would be lovely.
Okay. What about Ray?
Yeah, we've got a big year ahead of us. The crop in tally's looking quite good at this stage. Touch wood, there's no disasters coming up. I've got a few projects on the farm this year. Be doing a bit of zero-till cane planting and, yeah, pushing the limits a bit and a few experiments. So, yeah, it's going to be a pretty challenging year. No doubt there'll be a few trips back to the shed to do a bit more welding and fixing. But, yeah, no, it's big year coming up.
All right. What's on the horizon for you, Phil?
Probably the same as, yeah, just the normal year would be good. But no, one thing that I'm looking forward to is the Next Gen conference, which is coming up in March, that we didn't have
Oh, is it going to be on this year?
Yeah, on this year. It was going to be on the day the cyclone came. So there was a group in 20 from New South Wales that was stuck in a hotel room, I think, for 3 days because they come the day before.
Yeah. I actually got contacted about, could you please send across the videos from your Project Catalyst forum so they've got something to watch while they're in lockdown? So we did reach an extra audience, which was quite good. Yeah.
Yeah, so if there's still registrations available, so if anyone's interested, stand in Mackay, 2 days. I had to sell it.
Yeah, that's your sales pitch. Get on with it.
Yeah, it would be just nice to get back to a normal year, but I don't think there is a normal year anymore. But yeah, thank you.
Good-o. And that's a good place to finish up, I think. Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Okay, so just so you know, we have some refreshment stands set up just on that side of the room, like as in on the way out to the toilet. So anytime that you want to go and get yourself drinks and such, but we will have morning tea about 10:15, just so you know. Okay, so our second keynote speaker for today from Coral Science is Dr. Ken Anthony. Now, Dr. Ken is a principal research scientist here in Townsville at the Australian Institute of Marine Science. So please give him a warm welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. Thanks for having me. I'm excited about this opportunity because it's I'm excited about learning about catalysts. I'm also excited about learning about your projects. And I'm a little bit excited because it's a little bit like coming home. You say, what do you mean? I grew up on a farm. I grew up on a small crop farm in Denmark. I know that's very different from cane, but I feel with you. I feel your struggle in that sense, and I'm looking forward really to hearing the fruit of your work. My talk here is going to be on sort of the receiving end, you know, what's going on out there. And I'm going to start with a little bit of an anecdote. I'm not going to dwell very long because I haven't got much time, but I'm going to take it back to 1995 when I moved from Denmark to Australia. I was a student. I went to JCU and I asked my supervisors, my to-be supervisors, what should I study? What is the big thing here that I should study? I was Danish, I didn't know. They said, you should study how much mud and nutrients it takes to kill the reef. Because cane farming is really the biggest threat to the reef. It's killing it. So that's what I did. So over the next 4 years, I studied how nutrients affect the symbiotic algae that sit inside the polyps and make them photosynthesize and calcify and grow. I learned about how the turbidity, when you get a river plume, filters out the light and prevents them from calcifying and perhaps smothering the babies before they turn into colonies. And as I was doing that and I worked towards becoming Dr. Mud, or Dirty Danish as they called me later, something happened. Something's happening with this mouse. There it is. And what happened was this. In 1998, the reef bleached. The worst thing ever in terms of bleaching. We'd never seen bleaching on that scale before. So what happened here was that summer temperatures soared, the algae inside the corals became toxic, polyps spat them out, and they went into basically starvation mode. A large part of the reef was in that situation, in areas that weren't reached by river plumes. 16% of the world's coral reefs, because this was not just a GBR thing, lost their corals, 16%. And in many places that had nothing to do with water quality. So I sort of went, what is this? We had crisis meetings at James Cook University about what we're going to do about this thing, this fluke. Was it going to go away? Then in 2002, it hit again in slightly different places, heavier in the south. Was this still a fluke? This is 2016 and 2016, the worst bleaching event of the 4 we've had on record, and 2 of them back to back. This is like, okay, this is what people have been talking about. We're going to have bleaching on an annual basis, maybe if we don't have cyclones in between. So it made me think that maybe this is not a fluke. Maybe this is something real. And maybe this is something real that's landing on top of the other stuff that we're dealing with, water quality. This is temperamental. So really, climate change has landed, right? And it's showing its teeth as white coral. And you can argue, what's the problem? Why is that a problem? Bleached corals, they look pretty. And that is what we're often up against. People say they look really pretty. But with white corals and bleached corals come dead corals, often, not always, but often. And if you start losing the corals, the habitat, you lose the little fish who live on them. And if you can't have little fish, you can't have big fish, which means we basically can't have trout. We can't have recreational fishing. We can't have commercial fishing because the corals are like the trees in the rainforest. You don't have a rainforest without trees. So the problem we're facing is, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to stop worrying about water quality? Because if we're going to have climate change and the reef's going to go down the tube anyway, what is there to do? Should we give up on catalyst? No, on the contrary. So this is the crux. On the contrary, because the reef is not dead. The reef is resilient. This photo is from the Australian Institute of Marine Science of corals that bleached the year previously. So in 2015, summer of 2015-16, they bleached. Now they're spawning. If they're making babies, they've got to be resilient. And resilience needs support. So what we're arguing is that if we can keep maintaining that resilience, then maybe there's hope. But there's more. Because where does water quality come into this picture? That's climate change. Well, here's the deal. Because many of the places that bleached in 2016, in 2017, in 2002, and in 1998 were in areas that were also impacted by river plumes. So there's an overlap. There's an overlap between the reefs that get hit hard and that are critical. And I'll explain to you in a minute what I mean about critical, and the ones that get hit by climate change. So this is where the resilience comes into it. I call it water quality health care, because that's really what the reef needs. It's no longer about the big threat of cane farms and how they're going to kill the reef. It's about how great health care in terms of water quality management can fix the reef. This is crown of thorns starfish. That's relevant because because they're larvae. Their larvae are stimulated by nutrients. This is the cycle of the crown of thorn starfish. And if you look up there, and there's a little arrow going out to what we call the initiation box. Up in the Cairns to Lizard Island box, the initiation box, we see larvae and we see young crown of thorn starfish in the years following flood events, right? And the mechanism, and we think we've got that one nailed, is that nutrients running off in flood years cause algal plumes. The little baby crown of thorn starfish feed on that. They survive. They survive in such great numbers that they land back on the reef or they flow south. And it's almost like an epidemic or a bushfire. You spark it with the nutrients, and up it goes. Or it's a revving of an engine. Suddenly the thing exacerbates itself. You get more larvae in the water, you get more big cots, and off the machine goes. And these things can chew their way through the reef from Lizard Island all the way down to Swains over about 5 to 6 years. So you add that on top of climate change, you add that on top of water quality, but this is controllable. And this is basically an extension, potentially, of the water quality problem. Or if we can add that healthcare analogy to it, turn down nutrients as much as you can, right, through Catalyst and through your projects, you might actually be able to squeeze that choke point that says maybe we can offset or maybe we can not have crown of thorn starfish outbreaks when we otherwise would have had them. So if you take your foot off the pedal and go, climate change is going to kill the reef anyway, you're going to have more cots, we're going to have more problems like this. So it's critical that that water quality healthcare becomes a real thing. Where do I point this thing? Oh, there's a delay. I want to show you some results that are just hot off the press. So we've done some modeling. We've got some, wow, how does this connect? So we've done some modeling with some guys from UQ that have looked at how climate change is influencing. Now change back. I need to go back. There you go. Stay here. Don't touch anything. So climate change is connected to temperatures, which drive cyclones. Cyclones drive floods. Floods drive nutrients, drive cots, and they all impact on the reef. So we did a little model of this, which we then played out as a scenario, as a simulation, onto different climate change scenarios. I'm going to show you those results now. In about 3 seconds, 4 seconds. There you go. Okay. Now, the y-axis on this thing is percent coral cover in it, and the x-axis starts from about today. And then we've simulated how the coral cover is predicted to go under the best case scenario. So what you're looking at as the best case scenario. So that means we do Paris. We keep warming below 2 degrees Celsius. You know, great if we can do 1.5, but 2 might be realistic. And the red curve you see there is business as usual. So why is it going up? Well, it's going up because the reef is on its knees. It's just had 2 big events. Cots are chewing away at it, and we've had a number of really bad cyclones. So it's on its knees. You can't blame it. So that hump, even under business as usual, is sort of evidence that there is resilience in the reef. It can come back from this low point. But so that's the good news, yeah? The bad news is that it starts to dip after about 2040. Climate change starts to bite hard, even under the best case scenarios, and we're predicting a decline. There's another good news story here. This is you farmers in this room, this is you. You're the green curve. You're the green curve working together with the COTS teams. If you can fix water quality, the choke point, stopping outbreaks of crown of thorn starfish, and the teams downstream can kill the cots that potentially make it, in case we have a bad flood anyway, that we can't stop the nutrients from. The difference between the red curve and the green curve is you. Just chew on that one. I think that's pretty significant. That's a big difference. Now, I wasn't really going to show you this, but I have to. I have to show you the bad scenario, right? So this is the good scenario. This is the bad scenario. This is if we don't fix climate change. If we just go full pedal on emissions, which means your good work gets even more important after around 2040. In the short term, fantastic, because the reef needs extra resilience, and you can give that. But after 2040, it really starts going to a serious decline. So we have to pin our hope on the left side of this screen, so under the Paris, so under 2 degrees. But what about the rest? Let me just go back 1 second. Just have a look at that little hump. I'm going to point this thing anywhere here. Okay. What about that hump there where it goes down? What do we do to keep it up? Because we're not happy with a long-term situation where it goes into decline. This is a very new program that the ministers have helped us fund. It's called the Reef Restoration and Adaptation Program, in short, RAP. And the ambition is to help to climate harden the reef through any mechanism we can think of. So anything. And there is a couple of low-hanging fruits that we're looking at, and one is through what we call assisted gene flow. Because up north, in the far north, corals there are adapted to warmer water naturally. They can take another degree or two than reefs in the south, but they're separated by that South Equatorial Current that splits. Part of that branch goes south, which means that corals up north that spawn coral larvae don't naturally get sent down south very frequently. So there's this lost opportunity up there. That's that opportunity we're trying to tap into. What if we can basically get them over that barrier, get them into the central section that's fully degraded, give them another full degree of climate hardening? You know, if we can do that without other risk, without other consequence, we can buy a full degree. And if we can buy that degree, come on, then maybe, are you with me? Are you with me? Then maybe we can plateau at a high point. But importantly, we can't do that by ourselves. This is an addition to your good work. So we would basically be standing on your shoulders. If you decide to go back to business as usual and say, oh, this is not worth it, we will be left hanging in the water. So that extra work of new interventions, that extra work of let's look at climate hardening the reef with corals from hotter places will only work if we also fix climate change, if we also give the reef water quality health care. Look at yourself like that. No, it's not about the threat, it's about the help. And I know it's hard because I've looked at your projects, I've looked at your stories, and it doesn't necessarily work in year 1 or year 2, but it might in year 3 and year 4. So learn the stuff that learn from your failures if you like, but don't give up, because we can't afford that you give up, and the reef can't afford that you give up. So have the broad shoulders that you have. I'm looking around the room, you got broad shoulders. Glenn Fasano's got very broad shoulders. He's very critical. He's in the wet tropics. He's in one of those rivers that, you know, are critical for preventing the COTS outbreaks. So I thank you all. I thank you all for your commitment, and I'm excited about what the future brings, and I'm going to keep an eye on you continuously, and please ring me or send me an email if you want to chat anytime. I'll welcome that. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Ken. So just to mention a little bit about the live streaming to YouTube. So if you were to just go onto YouTube and search for Project Catalyst, then you will find that, and then you can go back and watch, and there's various other videos on there that are really great to watch as well. And also we will be showing some footage that was filmed post-Cyclone Debbie. We'll be showing that shortly as well. And those things you can see on the YouTube channel also. Okay, time for our next speaker. So, this will be a virtual farm tour, Succession and the Future. Kim is well known to many of you, probably all of you in fact, especially those who have hosted her on farm, from her days at ABC Radio to more recently sharing your stories of farming innovation and even challenges following Cyclone Debbie. But due to a string of mishaps, it's been deemed a high risk for her to continue in an MC capacity. So we did have to source an MC who also doubled as a workplace health and safety advisor. Enter Safety Sal, me. So taking over the reins. So soon to bring out her first children's book. Isn't that exciting? Teaching everyone how to hug properly. I'm so excited. At first I thought it was an adult's book, and so I did a pre-order because some people really need some lessons in that. So without further ado, please welcome Kim Clyden for our next session.
I'm sorry I spoke to that girl. Sometimes you just tell people too much, or they can research it online. Yes, many of you will recall if you were in Mackay last year, there was a couple of incidents. I'm not even going to go there with what happened to me 6 weeks ago, where I managed to gash my head open when I pitched off a stool, blacked out and hit the floor. Anyway, some of you know that story, others don't need to. We'll move on. But thank you very much, Sally. I saw Sally from a news article in the Townsville Bulletin where she'd expressed an interest in wanting to do more MC work, even though she hasn't before. So give her a big round of applause. She's doing a great job. She's a bit of an actress, and I think you'll get that over the next couple of days. I wanted her to come in her Superwoman costume, but she didn't. So, many of you will be familiar with the fact that I go out and I tell stories, and Craig mentioned earlier that after Cyclone Debbie, I felt the need to go out and share the stories of these growers. In fact, I really wanted to do more for them, and if I had money, I would have been wanting to assist them with some financial recovery. However, we don't live in a perfect world, and so I went out and I did what I could. I've been on farm with people I've never met before, and they've welcomed me into their homes. But over the past decade, through my life at ABC and of course through Project Catalyst in the last 5, I've heard many stories particularly around succession, the challenges people face and sometimes how well planning can go if you get it right. Last year, I had the pleasure of sitting with and talking to Frank Mujika from the Burdekin. And he was telling me about this story where his daughters, he has 2 young girls, 5 and 7, who were having difficulty in getting some information into the schools. So Frank was passionate about his girls coming onto the farm when they come of age. And through his succession planning and discussions with people in his industry, he found that it was quite challenging because they didn't have a model that fitted women. He went to his school and he encouraged them to get the girls from pharmacists who'd inspired these girls into technology and farm management to go to the schools so they could mentor and inspire more young people into taking over their farms regardless of sex. So I put together a bit of a story on Frank's farm. I visited Mark Vass, who may not be a Project Catalyst grower yet, but I'm working on that, and so are many of you, because he's been inspired by people like Willie, Lucas, and of course Aaron Linton, and many more that he'll name in this next movie. So please enjoy Succession and the Future, and I'm sure there'll be many discussions to be had around it.
The reason why I want to be on the farm is that it's an occupation that offers, it's challenging. You're not just a person that sits in a tractor and drives, you're actually a bank manager to an accountant to a lawyer to slash. You've got to keep up to date with agronomy. It's rewarding as well. Like you produce something, you see a bare block of ground, you develop it from scratch. You put the infrastructure in, you farm it, and you see the end produce, you know, like for my case, it's sugarcane, but you see the end produce. It's like a rewarding experience. The process of succession planning for me was quite simple. I'm an only child, but I helped my parents all my life, but I've always had some sort of involvement at a young age because they got limited English. So it has some involvement where I just more or less slid straight in. So it was pretty easy for me. Now planning forward with succession with my two girls, it's more of an education process where I want them to learn tools that help running a business, and basically, like I said before, a farmer is not just the person that sits in a tractor and drives a tractor. It's like understanding figures, understanding agronomy, to a lot of things, and the basis is quite simple. I'd like to hand I've got two daughters the farm, but then they've got to be able to manage the farm and be able to manage people, and I think that is the next step in my process of planning. So it's just making sure my children get the education tools to learn to understand the practices or learn to engage with people to help them make decision making.
Alice Warner grew up immersed in agriculture on a tea tree farm in northern New South Wales. Studying a Bachelor of Applied Science, majoring in agronomy, she's found herself working one-on-one with farmers.
I think that maybe there's a lot of daughters out there who were on farms and didn't want to necessarily have the hands-on approach on farm, but still wanted to be involved in the industry. So agronomy was a good solution for them to still be involved in farming every day.
So we get all the trial data, all the hard numbers, and then we're putting it in a practical sense that we get the economics done by DAF and shows how much risk is involved in these practices and ways to take it up.
Just trying to increase production really. Like at the end of the day, we want what's best for the grower. So anything that we can do to help, it's going to be better for them, which is better for us.
Frank and the girls have shown a huge interest in what we've been doing on farm, and Frank's always putting up photos of his girls on Facebook, like, look, they're using the G-dot, oh yeah, the girls are in the paddock today. And it's just great to see that they're passionate and they want to get involved.
My children show a fair bit of interest. Like I do take them around, not every day on the farm like I grew up, but every couple of days they're on the farm. They look at soil maps and they sit in the tractor and they get to help me change water. And when we had cattle, they used to go and help me go feeding cattle, and when we'd round them up, they'd be there seeing what was going on.
Frank is now focused on the sugarcane, recently trialling mung beans to improve soil and as a harvest crop. Simplifying water management is crucial, not only for Project Catalyst, but the future management of his farm.
With Project Catalyst, I've done banded mill mud trials and adoption of that into my farming practices. And then I do irrigation, like I've done irrigation scheduling with adopting G-dots and all that onto my farm.
So a G-dot is basically a moisture measuring tool. So it measures how much moisture is in the cane paddock, so how much pressure the roots need to exert to draw water up. It's a really simple visual tool that the farmers can just, they can look at it as they're driving past down the headland just to see, is their cane ready to irrigate or not. So with Frank, we've been calibrating the G-dots with growth measurements. So we measure how much the cane's growing each day, and that allows us to allow him to schedule his irrigations based off the G-dot.
The role of technology is just brilliant. Well, we are at a phase where if the farming sector, the sugarcane farming sector doesn't grasp technology and teaching youth about it, like in my case, my daughters or someone else's daughters, there's going to be no more future cane farmers in Australia. There will be some, but not many as there can be.
It's great to see that Frank's girls are keen to come back on farm. It's quite sad. Both my father's and my uncle's farms have just recently been sold. Dad's got 2 daughters, my uncle has 2 daughters, and no one's taken over the farm. So it's great to see that these girls are keen. And so my dad and my uncle, they diversified into other areas. And I had this job, so that stimulated my interest there and kept me involved in the sugar industry, but not necessarily be on farm.
Frank has found succession is more difficult to plan with daughters. He puts this down to the mentality of a predominantly male-led industry, struggling to grasp the concept of women managing farms utilising people and technology whilst pursuing careers.
I've really been fighting for the involvement in schools, and I got a win yesterday for these girls from pharmacists to actually attend my local, or where my children go, primary school, and they can even go to the local high school and speak, you know, do visits and all that. It broadens the thinking of children, you know, that, you know, you don't have to be a boy to go on the farm.
I think that we are inspiring them every day because, you know, we're out there, we're with the growers, we're talking to them, we're out in the paddock, and for them to see girls like us that they can look up to, it's definitely, you know, inspiring for them to see that.
I believe Project Catalyst is an essential thing where it's going to provide a future for the girls where they're going to be on the farm. The farm will be theirs, more or less, and with Project Catalyst and the interaction of growers and people that provide advice and all that, they'll learn that there's tools out there to help them manage a farm environmentally, sustainably, and plus being sustainable themselves financially. And I think Project Catalyst, I'll probably say it's been a major benefit, both environmentally, because in the process I've built a recycle pit, and from having no species of fish, I did a presentation where there's over 13 species of fish, and there's now wildlife living there, and productivity wise I've lifted up actually 2 units of sugar per hectare. So it's been pretty beneficial all round. It's a socio-economic change where I've had a win-win, so yeah.
Mark Vass, a 30-year-old grower, is also transitioning through succession. One of 5 siblings, he's been blessed with great water resources, yet challenged by his soil.
We are in Home Hill. They call this the Delta region, so the Burdekin's split up into 4 sort of basically soil types. So the Delta is really sand-based. We've got, not sand-based, but we've got a heavy sandy loam topsoil, but you dig down, most places in the Delta you've only got to go about 4 or 5 foot or 1.5 meters and you're in pure sand. That's hence why the Delta, we all have bores. We have a massive aquifer. We're so close, we feed off the river, off the Burdekin River. Such a large river system, it sort of replenishes the aquifer as well as the channels. Succession, it's something that I've always been very focused on. I've treated my relationship with my parents as a full business relationship. I never spent my whole childhood growing up working on the farm for nothing like a lot of people do. I did a trade, I moved away, I lived all over the country, only just come back 3 years ago. So I wasn't, by no rights did I want anything given to me for nothing. So I went into a lease agreement with my father, and so did my brother. So yeah, at the end of the day, I want to do what's right by all my brothers and sisters, and it's a full business arrangement. I pay them a lease, and you know, if something was ever to happen, even though they're a long way off that, hey, it gets split. There's no favours, and everyone's not doing all this work for nothing. So we've made it very clean, as opposed to a few of my friends that are in the industry. I find it can get quite messy. My dad is, well, he'll be 64 now. I started leasing the farm off him 2014. So he's officially retired. However, he still works every day and annoys the shit out of us. No, he's good, he's handy to have around. So he at the moment, he's my automation. When I want to go somewhere, he's the one that does the water. And eventually, yeah, I've got to look for an alternative. My younger brother, he is a cane farmer. He's up the road about a couple of kilometres. My older brother, he's got his own engineering business in town, and my sisters are teachers. But yeah, when I say us, I refer to my younger brother Chris, who we share all of our gear. So we farm separate entities, but we do share the gear. Well, I'm all about looking for the most efficient and best way of doing things. I quite often look at my farm, and then I look at someone, Willie Lucas, my neighbour, a few kilometres away, and I look at his farm, and he is in the prime zone. So once upon a time, whenever this place was all developed, it's a bit of a general rule of thumb that the second farm back from the river are the best. They've got, for some reason, they got the best soil, they're magic. He's a great farmer, but he's also got some great dirt. And I look at all my soil structure and think, how can I improve? You benchmark yourself against people that are sort of leading the industry. I've got a big emphasis on soil health. I'm doing a lot. My first thing I did was with Kim Cruz and the whole Biofert course, and just looking at different alternatives. But now I'm moving more. I want to try different things. But anyway, with composting and stuff like that, I'm currently doing mill mud trials, but not the normal generic mill mud trials, but actually getting them under the bed, locked away in fallow, and then planting into them. So that's one trial I'm doing, but the next one I want to do is to compare mill mud to compost to nothing. Dad has always just done everything the way he's been taught, his brothers are done, you know, and I automatically come in. I did it like that for the first year, and then I said, a lot of these things can change. Willie Lucas was the first one to talk to me about Project Catalyst, and that was still when it was a bit of an exclusive group, I think, and you had to be invited, and it wasn't until Kim yourself called me about last year that I sort of come to my first one. I like Willie. He's for his age. He's for his age. He's not that old, but anyway, he's very innovative in what he does and how he's farming, and he's easy to get along with, and he's good. I love his outlook on farming. So I have used him as a bit of a mentor, being relatively new. It's good to bounce ideas off each other all the time, and trials, because trials become so much extra work. Quite often we'll say, all right, you do this trial, I'll do the next. Similar soil, similar farming systems, and we sort of know, all right, yeah, rather than doubling up on everything. Willie was another great example of someone that was doing rotational crops and different legume crops. And Aaron Linton, I still remember one of the first times I went to Next Gen on the second year I was farming. I got nearly more out of the drive to Cairns with Aaron and Jared, and there might have been someone else with me, just hearing different ways. And that's when you know, everyone always ramps on about networking in any business, but it is such a powerful thing. One thing I got from Catalyst was to actually see the people from WWF there, you know, interacting with the farmers. So many people in this industry just think, and it's true, like their way, have no idea about what's going on the ground, and just implementing all this regulation and things like that. But to actually talk with them and let them hear our perspective, and not always just whatever the media's brewed up into the shitstorm of the week, was powerful. And I think whilst that's still happening, it's important that it's such an important forum.
Oh, that was great. So, the little stars in that movie are actually here. Give us a wave, girls. Yay! Alea and Eliana. So how amazing is this, that this is actually being live streamed into their school right now? You want to be even more famous, girls? Wave to the camera at Jack. Wave. Say hi, everybody. Hashtag girl power. You like that, Craig? Hashtag chicks can farm. Well done, girls. Okay, so we're now going to break for some morning tea, and that will be out in the reception area. We're actually doing quite well for time, so I'm very grateful and I appreciate that, but we need to stick to our schedule. Morning tea is thanks to Stoller. So if we could move back into the room by 10:35 to be seated for the next